Welcome to the El Cajon City Council meeting. The meeting is called to order, and I'd like to ask our city clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Ortiz is absent. All others are present.
Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Remain standing for a brief moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the February 8th, 2022 meeting and the agenda of the February 22nd, 2022 meeting in accordance with state law, council, and housing authority policy. We have no presentations on today's agenda. Council, do you have any agenda changes? Staff?
Mr. Mayor, we'd recommend that we move agenda item number 10, which is the legislative update, to the next council meeting.
Thank you. That brings us to consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request a discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull in any of the consent items? Staff?
No, sir.
Angela, do we have any speaker cards for consent?
Sir, we have no cards.
Make a motion then to approve the consent items.
Second.
Moved and seconded, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
We're now at public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do we have any speaker cards for consent or for public comment?
We have no cards, sir.
That then brings us to written communications, and there are no written communications and no public hearings on today's agenda. We have 7 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 7 is regarding City Council priorities. I'll ask our City Manager to please introduce this item.
Actually, our assistant to the city manager, Dave Richards, will actually give this presentation.
Hi, Dave.
Today I'll provide an update on staff's progress towards refining the city's communications, outreach, and engagement plan. Oops. In March of last year, the city held a workshop to establish city priorities for the coming year. One of the 5 priorities was to refine the city's communication, outreach, and engagement strategies, addressing what information stakeholders want to receive and how to best communicate that information. Let me see if I can share my presentation, sorry. Okay, I'm going to push on. Some of this material is repeat material from what you guys have been presented with before. To address this priority, we put together a committee of employees who regularly communicate on behalf of their departments throughout the city. This committee analyzed current and past communications and outreach trends, hosted several community focus groups, and conducted online surveys. In September, these results were presented to the City Council in addition to council feedback, or we gathered council feedback, and in addition, we incorporated your feedback into the plan that we're going to be presenting tonight. To understand how the city is trending in communication efforts, staff evaluated the city's outreach metrics between 2018 and 2020. Oh, good, the presentation's back. Between 2018 and 2020, The evaluation showed that the city's overall communication efforts trended upwards over the 3-year period. This includes a 76% increase in social media posts, an increase from 2.4 to 4.3 posts per day, a 27% increase in website traffic, 183% increase in news releases. And the analysis also revealed that we did take a dip in some places, such as volunteer participation in programs, a decrease of 67%, which we anticipate is largely due to the ongoing pandemic. After analyzing our current communication trends, we hosted 6 focus groups to gather feedback from our community. We asked each focus group what they wanted to hear from the city and how they'd like to hear that, and then what type of engagement events they would like the city to provide. The focus groups included Arabic, Chaldean, Farsi, and Spanish-speaking communities, as well as seniors, businesses, and schools. I included this photo. We actually were invited to go down to the Chaldean radio station's broadcasting studio as part of our conversation and dialogue during these community focus groups. So it's kind of a cool opportunity and just kind of a unique photo, I suppose. In addition to focus groups, the city hosted an online survey to gather additional community feedback about what and how the community wanted to hear from the city. Overall, we had 111 responses. And in September, as mentioned earlier, we presented these findings to the City Council, gathered some additional feedback from you guys, and then incorporated that into the plan I'm going to be overviewing tonight. The Communications and Outreach Plan is structured kind of like a strategic plan in that it's going to serve as a roadmap to achieve the City Council's goals. The plan includes 2 goals, first established by the City Council in March. The goals are supported by 7 objectives, or things that we want to achieve, and then these objectives are in turn supported by 18 different strategies or specific tasks to achieve these objectives. The 2 goals are to refine the city's communication, outreach, and engagement plan, and then to leverage technology and social media to promote the city, its events, and communities by relying on experiential marketing. Though in total there's 6 objectives included in this plan to help refine the city's outreach efforts. The first objective is to increase communication about development projects. So to do this, we're planning to, or one of our strategies is to post monthly on social media about city and private development projects. This task is already underway. You can see here's an image that we posted on social media just recently about upcoming development projects that are underway. Second strategy would be to utilize signage at city construction sites that illustrate how tax dollars are put to use in our community. Our second strategy is to increase, or objective is to increase communication with the business community. We plan to achieve this by sending monthly newsletter articles to the Chamber, attending the Chamber Government Affairs Committee meetings, and attend the quarterly downtown business partner meetings. The third objective is to increase use of the city's app. And to do this, we're going to develop and implement a marketing plan, which includes videos, banners, posters, social media, and booths at city events. And our fourth objective is increase the amount of interpreted materials that the city offers. This objective, of course, requires funding, so we're set to kick it off after this next budget year is passed. And here's an example on the screen of a flyer that we've interpreted into 4 different languages. So there may be times when it's beneficial for the city to interpret additional materials. Oops, there we are. So our fifth objective is to create an online or an e-newsletter. This item also requires additional funding and staff focus. So we're targeting this to begin in September of 2022. The sixth objective is more of a catch-all for our outreach methods. It includes sharing the sheriff's helicopter announcements on our social media, using Nextdoor, developing a pop-up city hall model that we can use at events. And a lot of these are already being implemented as we speak or have already been implemented. The seventh and final objective supports the City Council's goal to leverage technology to promote the city. This objective is to create content for social media that highlights interests, pieces, and city projects. We've already begun this, creating some videos. For instance, the Mother Goose Parade submission that we submitted this year, a video recounting a Swiftwater rescue, and a video to introduce Jax, one of our station dogs, to our community. As you can see in this picture, this is a screenshot from the Mother Goose Parade, where we kind of had a fun little story of Mother Goose's golden egg getting away, as we're kind of promoting and talking about city services. And of course, creating video content is fairly staff intensive, and it does require some equipment, so we're going to be making some budgeted adjustments going forward next year's budget. And with that, that concludes my presentation of our communications outreach and engagement plan. At this point, if the City Council has any questions or feedback, I'd be happy to take that.
Thanks, Dave. Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Michelle?
Thanks, Dave, for the presentation. Question, when you put out the survey and you had 111 responses only, how did that survey get distributed?
It was promoted on our social media accounts and on our website and to our e-notification. So it's primarily to people that are already familiar with the city.
So 111 responses out of 105,000 people?
Yes, it is not a huge number in that regards, but it is additional feedback on top of focus group feedback that we received, so another method.
Okay, so we need to work on that a little bit and get better responses. Thank you.
You know, the old school of government was just do your job and I don't need to know what you're doing kind of thing. That was, we expect you to do well, so just go do your job. This new era, it's not quite that way. You almost have to market yourself. I think the public expects accountability, transparency, integrity. And I really commend staff for this particular program because there are so many elements here which touch on so many different parts of what I think the public is interested in. You know, the app, I think, had 13,000 submissions in a one-year period or something like that. That's really good for an app that's just a couple of years old. The outreach to businesses for the grants, exceptional. I mean, it was follow-up after follow-up after follow-up, almost begging them to apply for a grant. So, you know, great effort there. The marketing materials, the newsletter, the Nextdoor, these are all different channels in the same way that there's not just 3 channels on TV anymore, there's a bunch. We have to reach people through many channels, so great work to recognize that and to do all those things. As part of this effort of reaching out, I think the council would appreciate and the public would a report on dollar days. I don't know that we ever got a final report on dollar days. We heard some stories along the way. Kids, you know, taking pool lessons. Well, how many kids? And what was the year-over-year increase in participants and things like that? Because maybe we want to do it again if we have leftover funds. That's an aside to this, but this really, from a public point of view, is very comprehensive and very well done.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it very much. Angela, do we receive any speaker cards for this item?
We have no speakers on this, sir.
Okay. So I guess all we have to do is make a motion to receive the report.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Item 8 is the Safe Parking Program analysis, and I'll ask our city manager, Graham Mitchell, to tell us about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Earlier this year, actually 2 council meetings ago, the council directed staff to prepare an analysis about safe parking programs in general. And so we've done that, and we're here to present that item to you today. The staff report includes the full analysis, which identifies or describes the types of programs that exist in the county currently and the 2 providers that are providing those programs. It provides sort of shares staff's perspective on the demand for such services in the city. It also talks about and identifies various levels that the city could or may choose to be involved with, identifies some locational issues, and then finally identifies 5 different considerations for the council to discuss as part of this agenda item. I'm just going to briefly highlight some of the main points from the analysis. As part of our understanding of what these programs look like, we talked to 2 organizations. The first organization we talked to is Dreams for Change. They're here today. They've been in our council chambers in the past. They run currently 2 programs in the county of San Diego. They run this program right off 28th Street and Highway 94 in San Diego. They also run a program off of Imperial near 55th in San Diego. Both of these programs accommodate between 30 and 35 vehicles. One of the sites can host up to 5 RVs there. They provide amenities such as restrooms and shower facilities. There's some minimal cooking and eating areas. But what's really important is they offer this wraparound service to help get folks from living in a car in the safe parking program into housing. In talking with them, they say between 60 and 65% of the participants make it into housing. Now, that isn't necessarily permanent housing. That's a range between emergency shelter housing and permanent housing. But between 60 and 65% make it into housing. The staff report dives into some other data that they provided, which we thought was really useful to understand. We also spoke to Jewish Family Service of San Diego. They currently operate 4 different sites. 3 of them are in the city of San Diego. One of them is at their headquarters on Balboa. Then they operate 2 on City of San Diego property, one at Arrow Drive and I-15, and the other is right across the street from the new Aztec Stadium off of Friars. Again, off close to the 15. So these are 2 City of San Diego owned sites. They also operate a site in the city of Encinitas. It's a City of Encinitas sponsored program that is at their senior community center. It's been there about a month. It was at another facility prior to that. Jewish Family Service offers a lot of the same amenities that Dreams for Change offers. They do have some hot meals that they bring in from other charitable organizations that bring in some food, but they also offer a lot of those same services. And they tend, it looks like in talking to them, they may serve a little bit of a different clientele. I know the folks that are at the Encinitas site are a little bit older. There tends to be more families at the Dreams for Change facility. But at the end of the day, they offer a very similar service, which is pretty impressive considering what they have to work with. All the programs operate with state funding, HAP money or state homeless housing assistance prevention funds. They come from different sources. Some of them come from the Regional Task Force on Homeless. Some of them come from the San Diego Housing Commission. Dreams for Change has been able to secure some CDBG dollars this current year that's helping with one of the sites. That's probably not a long-term revenue stream or funding stream, but using the HAP money is how they've been funded for the most part. In our discussions with both these organizations and with the city of Encinitas, we learned that security and restrooms tend to be the biggest cost items that they experience. We also try to understand what the demand, is there a need for this service in the city of El Cajon? If you look at all the things that we're currently doing, is there a gap in anything, whether it be safe parking or anything else? Is there something we're just missing that would help folks in the continuum to get from where they are now into permanent housing, which is our ultimate goal? And And we talked to our homeless service providers, and we did not get the sense from them that this is something that there's a massive need for in our community. We also talked to our city's homeless outreach team, our police department, and some of our other staff, and they're not seeing a lot of folks living in cars that they think would benefit from this program. I think our ultimate goal is to get people into shelter. We have shelter space in the city of El Cajon, or permanent housing. And so if that's our effort, I think that's the people that we spoke to, that's where they think our efforts should continue to be, is getting people into housing in the long run. The analysis also identified sort of this continuum of different levels of participation or involvement that the city could be involved with, from actually running a city sponsored program on city property all the way to absolutely no involvement. So that's something to consider. There's varying opportunities for the council to be involved with some partial assistance of funding or helping to secure HAP funding from the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, to working with different property owners, to, again, offering our own property as an opportunity for a site. Staff also thought through the concept of locations, and are there better locations than others? What are some of the zoning considerations to consider? We did look at, identified that any safe parking facility anywhere in the city of El Cajon would require a conditional use permit. So regardless of whether it be industrial property or residential property, a CUP would be required. Interestingly, in our research, we discovered that the county of San Diego actually prohibits these completely in any part of the county except for industrially zoned land, or unless it's on county property. So we actually have a lower barrier to have these in our community than the county of San Diego currently has right now. One of the reasons why the zoning code requires a conditional use permit is we'd want to look at what kind of impacts there would be to the neighborhood, how do we mitigate those impacts, let neighborhoods weigh in on some of those impacts and have them be part of the process as well. And we looked through some ways in which emergency shelter regulations would maybe bypass our local zoning code, and we could not find any that we're allowed to rely on. We also looked at what are some other properties that would potentially work in the city of El Cajon, and without getting into specific property by property, and we didn't analyze specific properties, we did look at a policy that the council had adopted over a year ago now, in which you allowed the temporary zoning of emergency shelters or tiny cabins or tiny emergency cabins on certain properties. And as you recall, I'll pull this map up, you identified about 10 different properties throughout the city that met certain criteria. They were large, they had some amenities, they had some buffers between them and residential neighborhoods. So one of our thoughts would be, if the council wanted to have these, from a zoning perspective, one easy way to do is you would just amend that current emergency zoning and allow safe parking on those as well as emergency cabins. ECTLC, I'll note, also is currently zoned to allow for safe parking today. That would be something that would be allowed under their current conditional use permit. At one point, there was about 30 spaces to accommodate one of these. That's now 10 spaces since the two new dormitories have been built. So it's not a lot of space. The other thing that we've noticed, and we've seen some literature about recently, is the number of community colleges that are currently operating safe parking programs. We know Long Beach kind of piloted this program. And from a zoning perspective, we think that if the program primarily serves the community college district students or their clientele, probably would be exempt from having to go through a conditional use program. But if it were just open to the community, we think that would probably trigger a CUP or some sort of regulatory authority on the city's part. So with that analysis, I think we're at a point where we would recommend to the council 5 different considerations. I'm sure there's a dozen others, but one would be to do nothing, and as projects are submitted, we'll go through the process and consider them on a case-by-case basis. The city council could issue an RFP, a request for proposal, looking for a specific site and a specific provider. The city could also identify a property in the city that you wanted to hold a shelter on and then issue an RFP to find a provider. You could amend the current emergency or temporary zoning pilot program to allow safe parking. And lastly is we have this pot of CDBG CV money that will go away. One option is to utilize that to any of our neighboring jurisdictions that may want to run a program, and we could use those funds outside of the city if they meet certain conditions to help them get a program started. So there's sort of 5 thoughts that the council may want to discuss as part of its deliberation. So with that, staff's here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Graham. Nice report. Any questions for Graham? You mentioned that the county would only allow these programs on industrial zone areas. Is that what you said?
Yes, as you know, when you have a zoning table, for example, there's allowed uses, there's uses that require a minor use permit or a conditional use permit, and then there's just flat out prohibited uses. This is a prohibited use. You cannot have a safe parking program on county property unless it's in an industrial zone or on county property or county controlled property.
So would this be a unique program, though, in regard to the area in which it's in?
What do you mean by that?
Well, this is, my memory serves, this is not going to be an industrial area.
Well, we're not looking, a couple meetings ago, there was a property owner that suggested safe parking on their site, and that's not in industrial. That's in a residentially zoned area.
So are we obligated to only do it in industrial zones, or can we?
You can do it per the zoning code on any property as long as they obtain a conditional use permit.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Graham. No more questions? Okay, then. Angela, do we have any speaker cards for this item?
Yes, we do, sir. We have 4. The first one is Scott Tulloch.
I'm Scott Tulloch. I represent the Good Shepherd Ministry Center, which is located on South Johnson. We've been working with Dreams for Change to develop a program to provide safe parking for 16 families. This program would provide 2 of the 3 goals that are listed in the staff report: prevention and housing coordinators. Dreams for Change would provide the case management, and we would provide the parking area, bathrooms, showers, and other services. This program would target what I think of as a unique portion of homeless families, and that's those that are living in cars. Our parent church has been working to help those folks through the Interfaith Shelter Network for a number of years. In our experience, these folks are not the stereotypical homeless who in many cases are struggling with mental health issues or substance abuse. Rather, typically, in our experience, these are people who are struggling with financial issues, like a recent job loss or a medical emergency. In our experience, there appears to be a definite need to help those living in their cars in El Cajon. In the staff report, it's listed that the district schools report there are 29 families that they're aware of that are living in their cars. Home Start also was reported in the staff report as indicating that approximately 15% of their clients are living in their cars. We also understand that El Cajon Transitional Living Center has a waiting list of approximately 100, with approximately 20% of those folks living in their cars. Our own staff volunteers at the Salvation Army site, and during those times of volunteering each week, encounter about 10 people living in their cars. We believe our program with Dreams for Change offers a very cost-effective solution, which for 16 families would be about $16 per night per family. To remain in our program, the participants would need to abide by very strict rules with regard to their behavior, and they would also have to participate actively with case managers with regard to seeking housing. Lastly, think how great it would be if we could get 16 of the 29 families identified by our school districts a safe place to park overnight with bathrooms, showers, while working with case managers to find housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Gary has a question for you.
Oh, sir, what school districts are these?
That was in the staff report. I don't know.
Mr. Kendrick, that number's in the staff report. That was a number that was reported to us a couple council meetings ago. We have not been able to verify that number. And in fact, when we called them, they said that's a number that fluctuates almost from day to day. What we did is we reached out to everybody that was on that list through Home Start to help as many as we could. So I don't know how accurate that number of 29 actually is.
And was that from Cajon Valley or Grossmont High School or both?
A combination. That was my understanding.
Okay. And was that just the city of El Cajon or outlying areas?
That would have been just El Cajon.
Okay. Thank you.
Next speaker is Teresa Smith.
Hello. Welcome.
Good afternoon, council members and council staff, city staff. As most of you may know, my name is Teresa Smith, and I'm the CEO of Dreams for Change. First, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank this council and the city staff for taking the time and resources to explore the possibility of having safe parking here in El Cajon. I just wanted to take this time, though, to really show you why safe parking is important to me. An email I received on February 16th of 2022. The subject line, SPP. Hello, the information that pops up on this map and address are the safe parking locations, but there's no other information below. So just getting contact information about the Sleep in Your Car program for homeless. Is it still available? I struggle with homelessness and the cost of living, and I need to look into a program. Thank you, Amelia. Another email, February 14th. Subject, I am currently living in my car. The message, hello staff of Dreams for Change, currently living in my vehicle and afraid of losing my only source of shelter. Can you please assist? Currently in the Santee area. My phone number is, thank you, C. A phone message I received on 2/19. Hello, my name is Angel. I'm currently homeless with me, my daughter, and the father of my daughter. I am also 5 months pregnant. Please, could you give me a call back as soon as possible? I'm very in need of a place to stay. Very much appreciated. My phone number is, please call me back as soon as possible. Thank you. And the final one this Sunday, February 20th. Subject, need help. I need a safe place to park for a while. It is unsafe to stay where I'm at. El Cajon Police Department told me to go here. Martin, I am also a vet. And these are the reasons why this program is important to me and why I think it should be important to this city. Thank you.
Steve has a question for you, if you don't mind.
Teresa, come on back down. How long is a typical stay for somebody that you manage?
We typically see a stay, and this is pre-pandemic, between 3 and 6 months. During the pandemic, we've seen that increase between 6 to 8 months, and even a little bit before a pandemic, because we've seen a very tightening in the housing market and rentals. So that's really prolonged people actually attaining that housing. We'll get the resources lined up, be it rapid rehousing, whatever that may be, in 3 to 6 months, and sometimes it could take 6 months to actually secure that housing. So time has increased in the last few years.
One of the concerns the people of El Cajon might have, if the city decides to fund or assist in funding, the people of El Cajon would say, we certainly want to help our own residents first, living in cars. So we certainly have compassion for people in other jurisdictions. What's your response to that concern?
My response is what we've seen over the years is that the only reason why we see movement of people from out of the communities is because that's just where the program's located and they don't have a choice. So like the individual I described, they've enrolled into our program all the way over in San Diego and now commuting back and forth because that's the only and closest program to where they're at. When we started the city programs that are now operated by JFS, that was the same concern that the city of San Diego had. We're going to be putting forth city CBD dollars that only can be spent for city clients. So as such, we, in essence, kept a separate record of those who were eligible for the city funding and those who were not, because we don't want to necessarily turn anyone away, especially if there's children involved. We just won't. If they have children, they show up. We're going to serve them regardless of where they come from. So when it came to the funding aspect, we would just sort that out. We only build the city for those who are San Diego residents, and then we use our own dollars to fund everything else.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
As Dr. Smith's heading back, I just wanted to thank her. We had I thought was going to be a 30-minute phone conversation or Zoom conversation. It ended up being an hour, and it probably could have been longer. And she gave us a lot of time. And I want to just thank Dr. Smith from the staff's perspective to get a better understanding of the program.
Great, thank you very much.
Next speaker, Kelly Spoon.
Hello, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you again for having me come and speak, and thank you for all of you for considering these. All your recommendations are definitely something you should act upon as soon as possible. I would like to really advocate for one of the solutions. There is this kind of concept of do nothing. I have been talking with the Good Shepherd and with them over there. They have been working with the city to locate their CUP, their previous permit. There is none on record. They've been working with the city, and it's kind of gotten into this weird space of because they've owned the property for so long. So I'm here to advocate for a solution. And one of the things that we can do right now is you could, by act of the California and the county have issued an emergency response to homelessness. You could instruct the staff or anybody to give a temporary emergency permit that would allow us to work with Good Shepherd as they provide a sanctuary for people who are experiencing homelessness to receive services here in El Cajon. I ask that we, as Dreams for Change, don't take your funding. We ask that you use your funding right now to find permanent solutions, permanent housing solutions for the people that we will help, that Homestart can help, that El Cajon's transitional center can help. We can go. We'll write for grants. We will write for donations. We will write for those things. I will make it part of my job to find the funding to get this done. If you do go with one of your others, we will apply for an RFP. We will go wherever you need us to be, and we will always be available as a resource to any of you to find out more how to help these families and people living in your neighborhood that are experiencing homelessness while living in their cars. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Last speaker is Rebecca Brandstetter.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Rebecca Brandstetter. I'm a happy constituent in District 1. And I just wanted to come and thank staff for the outstanding professionalism that they did in this report and they continue to do. And goodness knows they went into overdrive during the pandemic to address the crisis and the cascade of mandates and stuff coming down from Washington and Sacramento and the county. And you've done great work, and I thank you. I thank you for what you've done to address homelessness in this city. And you also turned this report around really quickly in the middle of all kinds of other stuff going on. So I wanted to thank you for the responsiveness to the community need and to the inquiry about the possibilities for safe parking. The staff has presented 5 good options, and like Graham Mitchell said, there's probably a couple of others out there that could be looked into as well. I would, in the middle of all these things, I would just like to say, let's try to keep the options open. I think that the city works really well when we've got room to be nimble. And I would also suggest that we don't put anything in stone necessarily until we hear from the results of the point-in-time count that's going to take place on Thursday. That's when we're going to know the most updated demand. And I'm eager and a little bit nervous about participating as a volunteer in that count this time. But again, I just wanted to thank you again for your clear concern for this community and your responsiveness to our needs and the ideas of the constituents.
Let me see if there's any questions. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Okay. Any more?
No more cards.
Okay. Council, it's up to us now. Open up for discussion.
Thank you to everyone who, thank you, Graham, for the report. It was quite detailed. And thank you to the speakers, Scott, Kelly, Teresa, Rebecca, and I see Kay over there. I know she's spoken spirit. I would like to recommend options number 4 and number 5. I think we have to do something. They have offered, Dreams for Change have offered to run the program and let us use our money to find permanent solutions. I think that's an excellent suggestion. And I'm hoping that we can work to find the CUP for the 720 Johnson property to get them going, because I understand that the the city homeless outreach team says it's not really needed, but versus current information from the groups that do provide this type of service, there is a need. I think that ECTLC, we should utilize whatever we can. I think from what I've understood in my research and in talking with these providers is that the people who live in their cars are generally not hiding, but they hide. They're not going to be out in the open. They're not going to be living in their tents. They don't want to be seen as homeless. For whatever reason. Grossmont College, excellent solution for college kids. Families, people who have dogs, they don't want to separate from their animals. And we have no resource for them to take their dog someplace to like a hotel that the animal can stay at, the cats, the rats, whatever they've got living in their car with them. And they can't just take them someplace and put them in a temporary shelter. So having a safe parking area allows them to stay intact as a family or a couple, allows them to stay with their pets, which is important for mental health and for both the animal and the owner. It allows them to have a little bit of pride without having to live in a community setting like a shelter. And as good of a program as ECTLC is, there are still some that have a need for shelter or have a need to have a place to sleep, but don't necessarily need a bed. They're fine with the vehicle. I think having a space for 5 RVs up in Encinitas, if we can get some of the RVs off the streets and into a safe parking, I think that that's an excellent idea. Yes, residents don't want people sleeping in their cars in front of their houses. It's going to happen. They're going to sleep in their car at the end of a street. And so providing them a safe space, they're giving everything, they're doing everything. Dreams for Change is allowing for them to, they give them the wraparound services that everyone wants them to have. They, especially the Johnson Avenue site, they've got all the services they need. They're not asking anything from us other than a CUP for that, is what I'm understanding. And I think that we need to move forward. We need to be progressive on this, and we need to just we need to open it up. And if they're willing to do this on grants, then what does it cost us? It's not going to cost us anything except that now we have to look for permanent solutions. And I realize that this is a tough situation. It's a tough situation for many cities around, and we need to focus on permanent solutions and helping getting permanent solutions for the mentally ill. I watch a lot of videos that come out of Seattle and Portland and Los Angeles of homeless people in the throes of drug addiction and mental illness, barely clothed, dirty, filthy, with people eating 20 feet away, and nobody helps them. And how can we as a society look at ourselves in the mirror and say, oh, that's okay because, somebody else will take care of that. Well, at some point in time, we as a city council, we have to stand up and say, okay, we're going to do something because we have the power to do that. And if we work in conjunction with these other organizations, we can do that. So I would like to see us take options 4 and 5 or whatever, any of those, and make it work. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Well, I was surprised by the staff report because the sources that I talked to does this work are the same sources that staff talked to, and we got 2 different stories. I'm not doubting staff's portrayal of the thing. It's just interesting that we got 2 different versions of this. The version that I got was, yes, this would work and it's needed and we'd support it. And to a shelter in town that said, yes, if we had people staged in parking spots, then we would never have an empty room in our place. So I thought, well, that makes sense. So I'm surprised that we differ in the information that we gathered. So I'm down to the need and the demand, because we don't want to fix something that's not really a problem. If staff says, well, it's not really a problem yet, but I kind of think it is, but here's where I'm going. The police actually happen to be the most useful source of information for me because I think they're out on the street, 24/7. What the police said was we can't find families living on the streets of El Cajon. We do find individuals living in streets and cars, but they're probably the type of people that won't adhere to rules found in a safe parking facility, which is something that we hear of even people who are not living in cars. So that kind of then who are we really trying to target? I still think there's something here for us to offer. Dreams for Change and Good Shepherd have a good relationship. I think there's something there we need to listen to. If Dreams for Change can get a state grant for the HAP fund, that would certainly make it easier for, I think, the community. An issue, as I mentioned, the funds from El Cajon, would they be used for people who are coming in from other communities? We would need to address that. But I think I'm going to reword option number 1 to be ready and responsive. Consider as they are submitted rather than do nothing. I know you didn't really mean do nothing. I think you just meant be ready and responsive. And I think that's what I would say is I think there are some interested people and we should hear from them. And let's hear what property they would like to propose. Let's hear what kind of rules, what kind of programs. Let's hear from the neighbors that are around them, what their concerns are. And let's see if this is a good fit. And I think that's how we should proceed is, even if we do it for 18 months, for instance, because that might take 6 months to ramp up, to try it for 18 months. And I think let them tell us what the demand is, because they know better than the average person in the public does. I'm for option number 1, be ready and responsive for anybody who wants to submit a proposal.
A couple questions for staff. What's the city liability if something goes wrong at one of these places?
Well, I guess it depends on what level of involvement we have. I mean, if we were to do it on city property, we'd have more exposure there. But if it were to occur at a property in which was vetted through a conditional use permit and then mitigation measures were put into place and the city's doing its due diligence and ensuring those mitigations are occurring, we wouldn't have any liability. It's occurring on someone else's property. If we had some funding in it from the city somehow, whether it be CDBG money or some other funding, our grant agreements would give us some of those protections from that. So I think our liability exposure would be limited.
Okay. I just talked to Ivan from East County Transitional Living Center today. They've got about 400 people living right now over there, and that includes 175 children. Now, my understanding is they could start this program without a conditional use permit. Is that true?
Correct. Well, I'm gonna look to Tony Shute. Yeah. Is that what is it, Mr. Shute? Come on down. They have the right zoning in place. There may be some modifications that may need to occur, but I'll let Mr. Shute explain that more.
Good afternoon, Council. ECTLC does have a conditional use permit for their emergency shelter operation. That would need a minor amendment, which we could do at the staff level. However, there would be a need for a tweak to the zoning code to allow for a safe parking program as part of an emergency shelter. So something that could be achieved in just a couple of months.
Thank you, Tony. Morgan, if I'm going too far in a specific property, give me the warning and keep me out of jail, okay?
Well, just to respond to that, identifying specific properties are not what's on the agenda today. Today is the idea of what direction do you want to give staff to proceed or not to proceed. If to proceed, how would that happen? I know there's been some talk about a specific property, but that's not before you today. It seems it's a property that is interested in this type of a program, but I would, because you're going to need to take some action to either approve a conditional permit, a conditional use permit, or take some other discretionary action. You really need to consider the fact that that will require due process, not only for the applicants, but the surrounding neighbors at that specific location. So I would suggest that you not get involved today in a specific property, but also give us direction as to whether you want us to start a program that would lead to any property throughout the city.
Thank you. I like looking at option number 5 because we already do an awful lot for the homeless in our city. I mean, we spend more on the homeless than all the other East County cities combined. And I think some of the other cities have to step up to the plate. I'd like to say, we've got 400 people over there at ECTLC already. I'd like to see Santee, La Mesa, Lakeside, although it's not a city, it's in the county, step up to the plate and at least have something there. And I think a safe parking area would be a good choice for them and doesn't put that kind of burden on us. And I don't want to import homeless people from other areas. So I'm looking at option number 5, and as Steve said, be ready on number 1.
I support number 5. Steve?
Well, it's 3 of you now have supported number 5. My question is, what if they don't accept the proposal? What if nobody says, we're in? Then we're nowhere different than we are today. We haven't moved forward. What happens if nobody says yes?
Then we cross that bridge when we come to it. I think we all want to kind of do something.
How long will it take us to get to that bridge, do you think? Do you think they'll not answer the question and just put it off? Do you think they'll take 3 to 6 months to think about it?
Well, there's a timeline on that money. So 50% of the remaining CDBG CV money has to be spent, 50% by next summer, August 2023 or July 2023. So if someone were to take advantage of that offer, they would need to be moving quickly. It's not something that they would be thinking about as a long-term strategy.
I'm also concerned in number 5 about the perception that we are offloading some responsibility that we have to our residents who are needing this to other cities. And that doesn't look good, that you take care of the issue for some of our residents, and we'll pay you for it. I'm concerned about that public view.
My response to that would...
Can I respond to that, Mayor, really fast?
Yeah,
I'm sorry
sure.
to interrupt you. This is some context. As you recall, we're working on this memorandum of understanding with the other jurisdictions in East County. One of the abilities in that MOU, once it's adopted, is to share resources. And, for example, let's say Lemon Grove were to build a shelter or have a safe parking facility. The other jurisdictions in the county, or East County at least, could say, we're going to contribute this amount of money, and in exchange for that, we get access to space, right? So that's what the MOU allows that to occur. So some of that may already be built in when the MOU happens without having to formally take a position on it. Because if someone were to say, well, we're doing a safe parking program in Santee, we could say, well, we have a funding source, and if you do that, we can provide funding if we can guarantee some slots for our residents there. So that's kind of in the works, and I know it's up there as an option, but I just want to give you that context that this is something that the council will be contemplating from a larger perspective in the next couple of meetings. So if that's helpful.
I think it still depends on Santee as an example to say, we would like to do a safe parking program versus us saying, will you please do a safe parking program?
That's correct. That is a difference.
And Bill, with your permission?
No, I just was going to reiterate what you said, that El Cajon certainly is carrying its fair share of the water when it comes to helping with the homeless situation. So I don't have, I think that there is some value in reaching out to the other jurisdictions and saying, it's time for you to be involved in this process. I don't have heartburn with that. But anyway, go ahead.
Actually, you kind of covered what I was going to say. The homeless, I think as long as it's in the area that they're familiar with, I don't care where they're parking in. I don't think they care whether they have a safe parking spot in Santee, Lakeside, El Cajon, La Mesa. They just want to be safe. But another question for the city manager, and maybe it needs to be our police chief that answers this. What kind of demand did the police see for families? It sounded like it wasn't a whole lot in El Cajon when they stopped, when they find people living in a car on the streets.
That's correct. And I think the staff report alludes to this, that a lot of people that are living, I'll just say this. I'll categorize sort of two different groups of people living in cars. We know by talking to Dreams for Change and Jewish Family Service that about 70% of people living in their cars are experiencing homelessness for the first time. So a lot of folks this is a very first time event for them. Frankly, those are the folks that are, when they contact Homestart, those are the easiest to get back in the shelter, to rapid rehouse. In fact, that's where I recommend a lot of our resources be allocated towards, is that rapid rehousing, because if you've been homeless for a shorter period of time, it's easier for you to get back into housing than someone that's been chronically homeless. I think the folks that the police department, the majority of people that the police department encounter living on the street are not those families. They're more the chronically homeless individuals, those with mental issues, mental addiction issues. Those are the folks that they tend to encounter, but those are also the folks that tend to break the law, and families that are homeless for the very first time are tending to figure out ways to stay a little bit more under the radar.
Okay, we've got our point in time count coming up. I guess it's this Thursday?
This Thursday morning, yes.
And it's going to be really cold Thursday morning. I think it's going to hit about 30 degrees at night. I don't know if it's too late to get the people that are doing the count to find out, let's say, for the people that are living in the cars, where they're from and how, if they got kids in there. They could probably see if they've got kids, how long they've been living in their cars, if they're getting to a program, so we can get a little bit more data.
So we don't dictate the questions. Those are dictated by the Regional Task Force on Homeless that follow HUD guidelines. So there's very strict questions that we can't ask. And frankly, we can't even go beyond that. I'd like to ask some probing follow-up questions because I think it'd be very useful, but not allowed to do that. But it does ask about kids that are living in cars. Vehicles are identified as a shelter, as one of the things that you're looking for. So we'll get some data from that. The problem is that the data probably won't hit until, if you look at past point-in-time counts, April, May, maybe even June.
Okay. Well, then I'd like to see us look at number 5, and then when we get that data back, maybe we could look at number 1 again as, and maybe we can get some of the people out here that are involved with trying to help the homeless to help identify places that may be appropriate sometime in the future, but just not quite till we get more information.
I think I'm going to do a hybrid on that. I'm going to do number 1 and number 5. I'm not really for number 5 for the reasons I've stated, but trying to put together a package that works for everybody. I think there are residents in El Cajon who believe that it's okay to help people for another community. We're only talking perhaps from the groups that we've heard from, we're talking 16 spaces. We're not talking a facility for 400. And I think there are a sizable number of people at El Cajon who would say, hey, if you want to give 5 of those spots of the 16 to people from other communities, we got a heart. And I think they're okay because we're talking 16 spaces under one interested party's talk so far. So I'm actually going to make a motion that we do option 1, which is to be ready and responsive for anybody who wants to submit a program for El Cajon, but also to accept number 5 as well, with kind of the couching of the language that we're not asking somebody else to do it, but we'll participate with somebody else to do it. Does that make sense? So my motion's for number 1 and number 5.
So before we talk about that, is there any reason why we can't be fluid and have all of them available to use depending on the situation that comes up? I mean, I don't understand why we have to choose one. If someone wants to provide, okay, maybe not number 3 for city properties because we are very low on available city properties to do that. But if someone wanted to, someone has an idea for a site or they have a site to provide, is there any reason why we can't be fluid about it depending on what the situation is? Why do we have to choose one?
Well, you can make any motion you want, Michelle.
Okay, well, then I offer that we make this a fluid situation and do whatever one of those 5 that comes up for the situation that is before us.
Well, some of them have to be decided on, like
Mayor, we got two motions on the floor, but the pending motion is Mr. Goebel's, and if you'd like to...
Did you make a motion, Steve?
Yes, you did.
Sorry. Okay, thank you.
So if there's a second to that, you can take action on that motion.
Let me, so Michelle, you can make a substitute motion if you'd rather, or we can vote on Steve's.
Well, no, if we can do the 1 and 5 if we kept 1 as fluid, in the sense of as these situations come up, then we address them and help a group that needs a CUP, help grease the wheels, if you will, to get them into providing the services that they say that they can provide.
Well, let me get a point of clarification, Graham. On option number 1, how would you explain that?
I think what I'd explain is, as an applicant, a property owner, said, I'm interested in operating a safe parking program, they would approach the city, and we would give them an application to complete a conditional use permit application, and then we would process it. I would feel uncomfortable, unless the council changes the zoning code, I'd feel uncomfortable giving preferential treatment for one CUP applicant over another CUP applicant, because I think it puts us in a bad position where we're favoring one types of use over others, unless you make a formal modification to the zoning ordinance to say, we'll make this a minor use permit instead of a conditional use permit.
So are you saying that to adopt number 1, we have to give you a CUP?
No, I think based on what I heard from Mr. Goebel was, as an applicant comes in, we'll process it like we would any other applicant, and then if they get the application, then we can consider our level of involvement at that point.
So how is that different than what you would have done today?
Not different than what you do today.
So it's exactly the same.
And that's why it's do nothing. And I know do nothing sounds negative, but it's really follow the protocol that we followed today.
And that's what I meant. An applicant comes today, if it has to go to the planning commission for a hearing so that the neighbors can be heard, that's what I'm talking about.
So it's really no different than what we're doing today. Michelle?
But can't we use the emergency response to homelessness from the state as a reason to maybe give preferential treatment to these programs that need a CUP?
We don't believe that subverts or overrides your current zoning code.
Okay.
My concern is always there are other people involved, in this case it would be a neighborhood, and they would be heard as part of a CUP process.
All right, well, so there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Okay, well, good. It's nice to have a good debate.
Oh,
you got a break?
No. Before we go on, there's one other thing. I like the idea of students being able to stay in their cars over at Grossmont College, and if we've got some CBDG money that we could help out on that. I don't know the proper way to contact them, if it's between our city manager and the chancellor over at Grossmont Cuyamaca.
It probably has to go before the council, right?
Does it have to go? Yeah.
Well, if it's involving CDBG, they'd have to apply for it, and there'd be an allocation process. I think, personally, I think the East County Homeless Task Force needs to have a role in something, and this could be one of their roles, is to reach out to the community college district and see if there's opportunities there. So that could be something that they may want to advocate.
All right, thank you.
Well, not only that, but the Homeless Task Force can be integral in option 5 in contacting the other community. That's one reason why we funded them for another year, is to be our advocate to a region-wide approach.
Correct. And I have a steering committee meeting for that committee this week, and I'll be sharing council's direction at that meeting.
Okay, thanks, Graham. Appreciate that. All right, let's move on to item 10. Actually, we're going to not do that till next week, right?
If we can do 9 first, though.
Oh, see, there you are, going in order. All right, item 9 is regarding American Rescue Plan Act funds. And ask our city manager to tell us about this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Late last year, the council met in closed session and gave some direction to council on potentially negotiating for the purchase of properties in and around the airport area. Staff has identified one parcel that I think there's some value in having a further discussion with. It's the property at the vacant property at the corner of Cuyamaca and Weld, again owned by the County of San Diego. I think in order to have an informed conversation with the county about its purchase, there needs to be an appraisal. At this point, we have no idea of its value, especially given limitations from the FAA, and also given limitations from the recently adopted Working Family Ordinance. So we would recommend that we reutilize or reallocate some of the ARPA money that was allocated for business grant programs, reallocate no more than $40,000 for some appraisal services. Once we have those, we would then go back to the council and seek some direction based on that data. With that, staff's here to answer any questions, but we would make that recommendation that we reallocate $40,000 for the purpose of obtaining an appraisal.
Questions? Angela, any speaker cards?
We have no speakers, sir.
All right, then bring it back to the council for discussion and direction.
Well, motion to approve.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Yeah, we're almost done. I don't think this much, just... Okay. Yeah, there's some stuff going on. Okay. Yeah, we're going to take a quick break, 5 minutes. We'll be right back.